Let's start with a basic question. What inspired you to become an actor in the first place?
I think it was a combination of things. I think that it was, I knew I could do it, which is a good stepping off point for deciding what it is you want to do. So I had a certain amount of confidence that I could do it. There is a kind of a artistic gypsy lifestyle that held a lot of appeal for me in it, and doing it, I really really enjoyed it. I liked everything about it. I liked the incredibly subtle parts of acting and being an actor, and I liked the incredible unsubtle kind of hammer blow parts of being an actor. There was really nothing to say no to.
So, do you have any acting heroes yourself?
So I'm 50, right? Probably 49. There were a lot of, interestingly, there were a lot of books by actors that were a big deal. Anthony Shear, British actor, wrote a book about playing King Lear at the National called Year of the King, which I found to be, I never saw the performance, but I thought it was an amazing kind of portrait of what it was to be an actor. Growing up also, I had, and still have to this day, just enormous affection for Richard Burton, because when he did kind of not particularly good films, he was always really good in them. So I guess those were kind of my heroes when I was young.
Now, you've worked in both TV and film. Which medium do you prefer and why?
Film is really still kind of an acting medium. It's still an actor, director driven medium. TV is very much a writer's medium. So part of the joy of film acting is you can really swing for the fences and kind of, make it your own and bend it until it breaks. The joy of TV acting is the writing on television tends to be very, very good. So the joy is putting over an incredibly well-written piece that isn't going to change very much. Which is not to say, by the way, that film writing is bad. It's all sort of a different thing. Film is just more of a director's and an acting thing, and TV is really just a writer's medium.
And you've also acted in some dramatic pieces and some comedies, such as It's Like You Know, which is a personal favorite of mine.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, it
That was
is.
you. That was you who watched. Thank you so much. The,
You're
for,
very welcome.
that was an unloved show by I think it was unloved by the network, which is a very awkward place to be. But it was a lot of fun to do.
Hmm.
I loved the process of it, but it was tough to be in the spot where it was so clear that ABC just didn't know what to do with the show, and then Who Wants to Be a Millionaire rolled along and just killed it.
Nowhere near
So
as good. So the question there would be, so do you find doing drama or comedy more challenging, and why?
I don't know, actually. It seems to me that both have their sort of, both a drama and a comedy will have very specific challenges, right? Put the joke over, or, really invest yourself in the moment. And both are really fulfilling. I tend to be, I don't know. I mean, I don't act all that much anymore, mainly just because I'm writing and directing stuff. But, it's hard. I think comedy probably is ultimately more fulfilling.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you just know, right? You just know you put that joke over well. You know that that's a funny thing. You know that that's exactly what it should be. So if I had to pick, I would pick that way, I think.
Great. Now, how do you think the business of acting has changed since you made your big screen debut in 1990?
I think independent film has changed a bit, because in the 90s, it was pretty easy to make an indie film, I think, in terms of economics, not in terms of anything else. There was just a lot of money to do these kinds of things, partially because some very famous indie films came out and did incredibly well in business terms. Sex Lies, Videotape being first and foremost, but many, many others. And as a group, we just burned through a ton of money, and now that money is much harder to find. I think it's much harder to raise a couple $1,000,000 or even $1,000,000 than it was 10 years ago. I think it's trickier now. I think that, but I also think we're making too many movies right now. There's way, 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 we're just making too many films. And, I'm part of that problem also. But we're making more than the market can sustain. So that puts downward pressure on the economics also. So I think that's changed. I don't think at root anything has changed. Anything fundamental has changed other than the economics. I think at root you're still struggling to tell a good story and trying to tell it as well as you can. And, trying to be cognizant of the fact that this is both a business and a very personal thing, which is always a dodgy combination.
Now, you've received many great reviews. Do you pay much attention to critics?
Yeah, I'm rare. I think I'm kind of rare in that way. Most people I know who are actors or writers or directors or whatever tend not to read criticism or shy away from it. I read it all because it seems to me it burns more calories to avoid it. And, it's that thing of like if you're doing a play and the notices come out that night or the morning, the next morning, and then the next day when you walk to the theater, if you've not read the review and the review is terrible, you're met with all of these sort of crinkled brow, people looking down at the floor and trying to avert your eyes. And, that to me is more painful than just hearing how much one critic doesn't like me. I'd rather be in front of that than behind that. So I read it all. And, truthfully, there have only been a few reviews that have sincerely pissed me off because I thought they were just wildly unfair. But plenty of reviews have been bad reviews. And for the most part, it doesn't really bother me. For whatever reason, I'm not made that upset by it. When I wrote and directed a film a few years ago, there were some really beautiful reviews, but there were some terrible reviews. There were some reviews, some critics just did not like it. Most of those critics I like and have respect for and read. A few of those critics should just never be writing criticism because they're terrible. So, I think that critics are really important. I think that, they're sort of the third leg of the stool. And many people don't agree with me in my business. Many people would much rather have no critics whatsoever, but I really like them.
Do you think critics' reviews shape you in any way as an actor or director?
Well, for all the praise I just heaped on critics, no, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think I've ever consciously done one thing over another thing or changed one thing to another thing because of what a critic has said or I thought would say. So no, I don't think so. But I think there is a relationship between what artists do and what critics do, but I don't think that relationship is, and nor do I think the relationship should be particularly close. I think I would hate to see somebody adjusting their work because of what a critical response would be, or what perceived critical response would be. So no, I don't think so.
Now, actors are so easily available now due to social media. Do you think it's beneficial for actors to have that connection with the audience? I know you yourself have a Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, I have a Twitter account, but I am barely sticking my toe in it. Yeah, I think it's just part of the job. I think there are actors out there that is perceived to be the job. I know plenty of actors who have Twitter accounts and writers who have Twitter accounts who really don't like it. They just hate it, but they have to do it because they would be perceived to be being derelict if they didn't. That said, I do know plenty who just stay away from social media altogether. I mean, it's hard not to find social media to be just an echo chamber of self-congratulations. I mean, it's super hard not to see it that way sometimes. So, I mean, I have yet to have Twitter. I enjoy because on some level it rewards good writing, and so I like it for that. I mean, I find sometimes jokes are incredibly well crafted on Twitter, and so I like it for that reason. But in order to I certainly don't use it to try to increase my limited fan base.
I don't think it's that limited, but sure.
What's that?
I said I don't think it's that limited, but sure.
Yeah. I guess it's not that limited. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
So you've collaborated with director Wilt Stillman 3 times now? What has that experience been like?
I just auditioned for him when I was a child, basically. I was 22 or 23, and it was a huge audition, and I just happened to get the part. And I didn't. There's some sort of notion out there that maybe Whit and I knew each other, or that I grew up in New York, or that I kind of came from that whole thing, and I didn't. And then after Metropolitan, then he had Barcelona kind of ready and waiting. We did that probably 2 years afterwards. And then Disco I wasn't supposed to be in. Whit and I both agreed not to be in it. I think he had another. I know he had another actor, but that actor, it all kind of fell out, and so I think like a day before film now, probably a week before filming, Whit called and was like, "Can you please do this?" But Whit and I both thought that 2 was enough, that we didn't need to do 3. And then he did Damsels, and I wasn't in Damsels.
Now, moving on to your own work, you wrote, directed, and played a role in Turn the River in 2007. Where did the idea? Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. Where'd the idea come from? I made a movie with Famke as an actor. Famke and I did a movie called The Treatment. So we had done The Treatment together, and Famke and I we really got along. And I had another movie that I wanted to make, that I'd written that I wanted to make, but I wanted to write something for Famke. Because she has this sort of cowboy spirit to her. Like she's a real she should play actually a gunslinger someday. I guess she has. She's been a Bond villain and all that. So I just wrote this part for her of a pool hustler because I thought that would be fun for her to play if she wanted to. And then the idea of getting the little boy back, it seemed kind of not dissimilar to a Western theme. And I knew it was sort of small enough that we could get away with it. I knew we could make it for very little money, and I knew I could ask actors who I either knew or really admired to come in and do a couple of days on the film. And so that's how it all came about.
Now, because you wrote and directed it, were you more critical of the final product?
Am I more critical of it because I wrote and directed it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. Again, this sort of goes back to the earlier conversation about critics, but about how your work is sort of perceived or whatever. But I don't think so. I think all you can do is try to have as much of it planned out as you can at the beginning, and then just show everybody just needs to show up and do the best, and then we'll probably be okay. I came on to direct another picture that I didn't write, called The Interest of Justice, that we should start shooting in early fall.
How do you find being a director now compared with when you initially started?
I don't know. I think that I don't know that I've changed. I think obviously I've changed in the sense that I've learned a little bit more about some technical stuff and about how to make the day easier. But really, I don't know. I don't know that I've changed all that much. I really haven't directed all that much, right? I directed one movie that I wrote and directed. I directed a TV episode with a lot of dancing in it that I loved. I was supposed to direct a film that I wrote, Midnight Sun, and now I'm going to direct this. So it isn't. I don't know. I don't think I've changed all that much. I also don't see. I actually see that the line between acting and writing. I think acting and writing are very, very similar, and I think writing and directing are very, very similar. So I think it's the same skill set. I just think that you're sort of aiming it in a different direction, if that makes sense.
Are there any projects coming up in the near future other than this movie you just mentioned?
I'm writing two things. One is something that I just got hired to write, and we'll see where that goes. But the other is a movie that I want to direct direct next year, like this time next year. Which, if everything lines up, I'll be able to do it. It's very different than anything I've sort of ever done before. It's very, very kind of genre-y, but I really like it, and I think we can do it pretty cheaply. So I think that's the next thing. That's the next thing after the next thing.